Welcome, friends. Today I'm going to teach you how to protect yourself against somebody who's speaking evil against you. So first of all, I'm producing and releasing this video on a Saturday. Saturdays are really good for rituals that require dealing with negative energy. What I'm saying is that the god that rules today, Saturn, is actually really important in karmic cycles. So if somebody's sending evil to you, essentially you can do a protection spell on Saturday because Saturdays are really helpful for that reason. Also, it's a special day. We just came out of a solar eclipse. Solar eclipses are really important with changing the energy around you. Things that were hidden, they may become discovered, and vice versa. And then finally, there is a little bit of an alignment with Saturn right now happening. That's going to change the flow of things. Once again, Saturn is the planet that is associated with karmic justice. So the day is ideal. The lunar phase as well. We're in the negative dark phase of the moon. That's really good for removing things. After the new moon, between the new moon and the full moon, that's considered the positive light phase of the moon. And that's when we work on abundance and receiving things. For this ritual, I don't suggest doing exactly what I'm doing. Always customize your rituals and make sure they are completely yours. One thing I would do is obtain 3 candles, a black candle, a white candle, and a red candle. Black is really important because it shields against those negative energy. Light is attracted by the white candle, and red is to give power and strength to your ritual. Other ingredients that you could possibly obtain are lingonberry. Lingonberry is used in Scandinavia to be connected to the land. So the spiritual meaning is connection to the land, but also resilience and strength. If you can't get your hands on lingonberry, you can actually get cranberry. Cranberry can be used for protection and resilience as well. Then you can also get chips, oak chips that you can actually use for strength as well. What I would do is this is my little cauldron. You can get a container like this and then mix the two and then crush them into a fine powder. After you're done with that, you are pretty much ready to set up your ritual. In my rituals, I like to have as much help as possible. So I use fire in the form of candles. I use oils that are connected with the element. They're essentially fluid, so in a way they can resemble water. And I can actually use water itself. That will be even better. And then I use also elements that remind me of the earth and air as well. So in this ritual, I will have 3 candles, once again, black, white, and red. I will also have the 2 herbs that I'm using, lingonberry, oak tree, and I'm also going to obtain sage. I will burn the sage, so that's mixing something from the land but burning it, and that's distributing through the air, and lavender oil as well. So now that I have my setup complete, before I start my ritual, I have to determine what the purpose of my ritual is. How do we determine that? When it comes to receiving evil can come in several forms. One form is the eye of jealousy, the evil eye. If somebody is jealous of you, they will send their negative energy to you, whether they're doing it consciously or unconsciously. And that negative energy can affect your life. The other way your life can be affected is through negative gossip. So if people are talking badly about you. So in this case, I'm not focusing on the fact that people may talk negatively about you, but may say the truth. In that case, if you are pushing against that action spiritually, it may work against you. Because let's say I committed an infraction, such as driving and across an intersection with a red light. And somebody was telling somebody else that I was driving with a red light and I crossed the intersection even though I was supposed to stop. If somebody was saying that, they wouldn't be speaking evil. They're essentially speaking the truth. And then that's a consequence of an action that you shouldn't have done because there was an infraction. Now, if let's say you're a great driver, but somebody is making up the fact that you may drive erratically and you may cross the intersection with a red light or you may do all kinds of infraction, that's speaking evil. If you have a business, that kind of speaking evil can affect your business. If you are in a relationship, that kind of speaking evil can affect your relationship, particularly if it's a new relationship and the trust rapport hasn't been built up. Same in the work field, in the school, in your family. So that's the kind of evil that we also want to ward off. The last one is evil that comes through action. This could be physical violence. This could be somebody who's trying to take possessions from you. So that's a form of evil as well, and we can protect ourselves against it. So that said, when I'm designing my ritual, I'm particularly focusing on pushing that evil back. So many times your ritual can be set up in a way that you can just set up a protection. Protections work great. However, in some cases, the evil that people send us is a little bit more insidious, and therefore just setting up a protection may not work. My favorite type of ritual are, I call them self-defense ritual. Let's say somebody is attacking you spiritually. You can reflect that energy back to them. And the reason why you're not necessarily going to suffer karmic consequences, that you're not the person who initiated the contact. The contact was initiated by somebody else. So if you're protecting yourself with a shield, but it's a sort of reflective shield that's sending the evil back at them, karma shouldn't affect you. Now, of course, throughout the ritual, even through the moment you write the ritual and you're thinking about it, make sure that you don't have negative feelings. If the situation is causing you a lot of negative feelings, those negative feelings can actually attract more negative energy, and therefore the ritual can turn against you. So make sure that you're pretty much emotionally separated from the act that you're doing. Keep an attitude that is positive. Keep love in your heart, and understand that this is a necessary practice that you can use in order to protect yourself. Many witches will disagree with this. They will tell me, well, there is the law of three. You're essentially sending back negative energy, and therefore you're responsible for it. But in reality, the way the universe will look at it is that one person originated it. I'm not changing the energy. I'm keeping the energy the same. All I'm doing is reflecting it away from myself. So, in my belief, and of course I could be wrong, this is all a matter of beliefs and spiritual experience. In my belief, I don't believe that doing such a ritual would affect you negatively, will bring negativity onto you. Now, you see here I have a glass and a crystal. Before doing my ritual, I like to do a little bit of divination. So I can look at this quartz, and this is a smoky quartz. It's a smoky crystal. And I can ask the universe to reveal to me through the patterns that we see in this crystal, what kind of negative energy I'm dealing with. This is important, but essentially this will stop at the divination phase. I would just look at it, interpret it, and leave it there. The other method that I have here, in this cup I have coffee. You can use coffee that's a heavy grain, such as like espresso that you can make at home, and actually perform a spell, drink the coffee, and then read the bottle. The reason why I prefer this method is like I can actually use the coffee and mix it with the powder that I made earlier. So once I finish the coffee, I can actually remove the powder, put it back in my little cauldron, and that way I have a complete powder. And there is a specific reason for that. When it comes to energy and magic, we are creating connection, we're creating correspondences. So in this case, my ritual is a general protection ritual that can protect me from evil that comes to me from the past, present, or future. So if I'm simply looking at the crystal, I'm just seeing a result, but it's very hard for me to use that and incorporate it in my ritual. It's great to see, to know, but it's very hard to do the second part that I really need. Now, what I will say with the grounds that will be revealed in this drink, that I will create a connection between the evil that will come to me, that is coming to me or has come to me. And because I'm creating the connection, I'm directing the ritual to those people that are the evil actors. So I have a little ritual written in here. If you're using the crystal, and you can take note. Of course, you open the circle. You may have your candles already on, your powders already mixed. The order doesn't really matter as long as it makes sense for you. But if I'm looking at the crystal, I can say, dark crystal, reveal all those who curse, speak evil, and falsehoods, and cause harm at any time, any space, any dimension. Okay, I got 3 very distinctive images from this crystal. You will say the same ritual, but instead of saying dark crystal, you will say dark waters. And as you say dark waters, then you can add, these waters I drink will reveal all those who curse, speak evil, and falsehoods, and cause harm at any time, any space, any dimension. As I drink the waters, then I can look down and see whatever shapes. Generally, if you see something that's an X shape, that means that could mean a curse. Many things can be arrows. Sometimes you can see the face of a person specifically. In this case, this is supposed to reveal everyone who at any moment is speaking evil or being evil to you. Then what you will do, you will say coffee grounds or tea grounds. I will mix you with my powder so that the connection between the evil doers and the evil speakers and this powder can be made. Once you've done the second portion, that connection allows you to transfer their energy onto the powder. So now that you have the powder that you can mix, you can add lavender oil. Lavender oil will make it into a muddy substance. You can also use the sage a little bit. Sage will purify your space. Now there's some disagreements on the use of sage. Why sage is good for purification, but many spiritualists believe that the moment you burn white sage, you're getting rid of all energy. So white sage will be very good if you're doing a ritual and cleaning out your altar. So what you could do is use white sage before everything starts in order that these instruments that you've already cleaned up may be a little bit cleaner in a spiritual sense. But for doing the ritual, you can actually use Palo Santo. Palo Santo is supposed to ward off negative energy, but it will not get rid of all of the energy. So now that I have my powder, I did my ritual, my divination. I'm going to go to the second portion of this ritual. I'm going to grab this. Take a guess what it is. This is horsehair. And horsehair is really important because it's connected to strength, resilience, but also protection. I'm particularly bonded to horses through the ancestral line. My European ancestor used to ride horses. My Nordic ancestors used to sacrifice horses to Odin. And for that reason, I can incorporate the use of horse, particularly horsehair, in my practice. So what I will do with that powder, I will grab it and distribute it on the horsehair. If you don't like to waste the powder, you can actually put it in a little bag. It could be a leather bag ideally, or if you're taking something that's a little bit less expensive, go with either a black bag or a red bag or a white bag, just like the color of the candles. So what you will do, you can cross this. This will make a rune called Othila. That's very similar to the rune. And you can add your little bag with the powder in it. Or otherwise, you can just use the powder and smear it on this. Now that you have this device, I want to do two more things. One thing, do an actual spell work in order to activate this. The second thing, I would like to have a spell work that I can also use, not just today, but in any situation where I believe somebody may be sending evil towards me or actually do evil towards me. And the second spell needs to be discreet, and it needs to be something that you can do really fast at any moment and that you can remember easily. So for this one, I will recite 3 stanzas from the Alamo. From the end of the Alamo, the last few stanzas talk about specific spells that you can do. And I will read this to you in English, and then I will actually recite it in Old Norse. For the Old Norse pronunciation, you can actually look at the videos of Dr. Jackson Crawford. I've watched many of his videos, and if you are interested in Norse magic, I suggest that you become familiar with the culture first, in order that if you're a traditionalist, you're incorporating things properly. Now, for my specific tradition, I don't necessarily stick to one tradition because, first of all, I'm mostly Italian. Second, my Germanic heritage is very new, essentially from the 1800s. And thirdly, my ancestors, both the Italian and Nordic ancestors, like a little bit of intermingle of cultures. So let me explain that. When the Vikings reached north of France, the Normandy region, they mixed with those people. They created a new population called the Normans. The Normans conquered Sicily. So one of my connection to the Germanic tradition is through the Sicilian conquest from the Normans. Of course, Sicily was also the place where we had Viking invasions at many moments in history. We also had a lot of mixing through other Germanic tribes that either the Romans brought or the Normans brought to the island. So that connection is a little bit more ancient. And the Normans, one of the reasons why I celebrate this specific population is that they were extremely smart. The way they ruled Sicily was the following. First, they made sure that the land was Italianized and Latinized. So what they did, they allowed for people from the German region, Northern Italian region, Germanic people to move from the north into Sicily. And these populations are still present today in Sicily, and they speak a specific language called Gallo-Italic, and you can look it up. So one, they facilitated the Latinization of the island. The island before then used to speak Greek. Greek was the language. The island was also under a 100-year occupation from the Arabs. Not a lot of the Arabs were essentially left, but the Normans decided to keep their economic system. And because of that, the island of Sicily was thriving. One thing that the Arabs were doing right was finances. And then, of course, because it was the hub of the Mediterranean, there was a lot of movement of people. So in Sicily, you could speak any language and you could practice the three main monotheistic religions. King Frederick II was actually an occultist as well, and therefore a lot of his traditions were not only based in Christian ideology, but also in the pagan traditions of his ancestors. So that said, when I connect to the Norse culture and when I use the Norse culture for my rituals, I try to be as traditionalist as possible, but also knowing that because I'm a mix of things and because other cultures also have very effective methods to practice religion or do spirituality, I can incorporate those methods as well. So for me, I'm not personally against the use of white sage or Palo Santo in my practice because I've used them before. I live in a location where the people of this land use it for their practice to this day, and I believe those plants are sacred. Now, I'm going to read to you the Old Norse verses. I'm going to read the stanza in English first, and then I'm going to proceed with the Old Norse. So in English, at this moment I will take the white candle and light it up and say, a third I know, a sore need should come of a spell to stay my foes. When I sing this song, which shall blunt their swords, not their weapons nor staves can wound. I can do this in English, light the white candle. Now, in Old Norse, this will be Thakkanek thredia. Ef mer verd fort mikil has vid mina as mogo. Egiar ek deifi minna and skota. Vita te fame va nefelir. Now, I'm not the best with pronunciation of Old Norse, but I believe it's somewhat similar. I dwell a little bit in Norwegian and Danish, and I know a little bit of Old English. So I believe this could be similar. I'm understanding what I'm reading. I know that runes, the Elder Futhark, I know what the runes means and how you can read them. The first stanza means the following. We're essentially doing a spell to protect us from harm. And this is particularly physical harm. We mentioned swords and weapons and staves that can wound. But because we live in modern times, we're not actually using swords and staves. We're using words and pens and many times modern day weapons. So for that reason, I believe that I can, if my intention is to apply this stanza against all kinds of evil that I could possibly imagine, the stanza that I just read will work even by itself. But I want my spell to be powerful, so I'm going to go to the second stanza. So I'm going to read the second stanza in English and then in Old Norse. A sixth I know, when some there would harm me, in runes on a moist tree's root. On his head alone shall light the ely of the curse that he called upon mine. And at this point, I will burn the red candle. I'm going to read the stanza in Old Norse. Thakkanek setta, et mixerir thekt av rodum ras vidar, och than aler mik efter väder, than aitamein elder en mik. So this stanza specifically protects you against witchcraft. Using runes against a wet tree root is a practice that you can use either to do any kind of spell, including a curse. So what I'm saying is that if somebody curses me, I'm going to block the curse and the curse will go against their people. So this is another reason why I reject any claim that if you do a binding spell or a protection spell, the evil comes back to you threefold. That's a Wiccan belief, and you are allowed to believe it. But I don't believe that the Old Norse, the Norse people, the people of Scandinavia, used to believe that, based on this stanza and what it says. And these are the words of Odin. Odin is speaking his own knowledge and imparting it to humanity so that humanity can learn. I'm going to read the last stanza. A tenth I know. When at night the witches ride a sport in the air, such spells I wear that they wander home out of skins and bits bewildered. What that means is that if I'm speaking these words, I am essentially telling anybody who is using magic or even the slight evil eye that those spells, I'm essentially keeping them away from me. So the witch will be without skins. Skins will be what we get out of a hunt. They're referring to the wild hunt. The wild hunt is a Norse concept. In the wild hunt, you believe that if you're a witch, you're a knight, your soul leaves the body and rides with Odin and goes to other places and does things. So it's essentially talking about those witches that do that during the sleep. This is what we normally call astral projection. Now, I'm going to read the same stanza in Old Norse. Það kann ekkert þjunda, effekt se tundirur, like a lofty hall. Exvalving of their filler fara, sina heimhana, sina heimhoga. So that's the stanza in Old Norse. Now, I have my candles set up. I have a little bit of the ritual work. There is one last thing that I would like to do. And the last thing you're going to do it with me. I'm going to trace a bind rune. In this bind rune, before we go together, I'm using different runes. One is Othila. Othila is about the deep self. It's about ancestry, origin, land of heritage. Othila connects you with your ancestor. Ideally, before I start all of this work, I can have some skull. I use a deer skull for that reason and present an offering to my ancestors. Then I use the rune Elgits. Elgits reminds me of the moose and the elk. These are majestic animals. They're known for their strength. And in this case, I'm giving strength to my ritual. I'm using it for protection. Then I'm using the rune Kainats. Kainats is for giving energy to the work. Then I'm going to be using the rune Tiwas. Tiwas is used to give strength and particularly protection because Tiwas is associated with the god Tyr. Tyr sacrificed his own end, and Tyr was also the god of war. So when I use Tiwas, not only I'm keeping in mind that I will be giving a sacrifice at some point, and this sacrifice in modern days could be simply some smoke, some incense that you can smoke and you dedicate to the gods, but it can also be a food offering as well. In the Norse tradition, there was actually bloodletting, and this was coming also by the practitioners themselves. This is a practice I still believe is powerful because it's one way we essentially activate the runes. After Tivats, I'm going to use the rune Urus. Urus is associated with the wild ox. Once again, it's life force, it's strength. Urisas is for defensive force and destruction. In this case, what I want to destruct when I'm tracing Or even better, if I'm actually designing the bind room and then doing it on actual wood, ideally oak, I am actually giving it power. So even though the bind room may be mostly finished, once I'm thinking about Thorisas, I'm thinking about the destruction of that evil that is coming towards me. And I'm going to have Isa. Isa is used to pause, essentially block the negative energy. So what you can imagine as you're going and tracing your Isa, that you're essentially creating a block between you and the people sending evil towards you. And finally, the last rune I'm going to use is Euhar. And Euhar means passing through a gateway. So as I'm tracing my rune, what I will imagine is the negative energy that has come towards me that I've blocked, because I have all of my protection. I've used Isa to block it. I've used Disruption, Thorisas to block it. Now I'm sending it back through a gateway to that person. So in this case, it's essentially a mirror spell, but I'm not using any mirrors. So now that I have my ritual complete, I will design the bind rune. You're more than welcome to use the Avamal verses that I read. If you are a practitioner of Old Norse magic, you're more than welcome to use those. And same for the binding rune. But let's say you're a witch that practices and uses the Greek pantheon, or maybe an African pantheon, an Asian pantheon, an American pantheon. What I would suggest doing is contacting me. You can either write in the comments or you can contact me on Instagram at Metaphysical Latitudes, and I will be more than happy to help you and assist you with designing your specific ritual. Once again, your ritual needs to be customized to who you are and the kind of practice that you do. So finally, I'm going to be tracing my binding rune, and I'm going to do it on paper. However, ideally, once I'm going to put this ritual together, I'm going to do it later today, probably right after sunset. I'm going to use wood to do that. And then I'm going to apply the bind rune with the powder that I made on this horsehair, and I can carry this horsehair most days for protection. I personally don't like carrying something every day for a specific purpose, but I like something that can be used very quickly. So I have right now 8 runes, and 8 is not necessarily a good number in Old Norse. So I'm going to try to make it 9. So what I will do is add an additional rune. And the last rune I'm going to use is Manes. Manes is referring to community. And it's represented in English by the letter M. Manes represents men in the community. So in this case, as I'm creating the protection at Othila, I'm using my ancestral energy. I'm using Yergis, nature energy to create this protection. In Urus, to use the life force again. And then Kauna for more energy, Tiwats for protection and strength. And then once I have all of the combination of those, I'm trying to direct this energy. So the first rune that does that is Torisas. So Torisas is defensive force and disruption. And then I have Isa. Isa will pause the energy. And then Ewar will pass the energy through a gateway to the person. And whoever is the person is at the end, is the community that's creating the evil, and that's Manes. So now, when I take the first letters, not only I have 9 letters to work with, but it also will be a sound that is complete. And the sound is the following. So that works the same way a mantra will work. This is a personal spell for me. It may not work for you because I've used the meaning of this really powerful symbols in my own way. But now I have a mantra that I can essentially repeat every single time I believe there may be negative energy that's coming towards me. So you're going to watch how I'm going to trace the rune, and then that will be the end of the video. So for the runes, I have firstly the rune Othila. When we say Othila, is for ancestral protection. Then I want one of my favorite runes, that is Helgith. Helgith is used once again for protection. I have Othila and Helgith. And here you can also see Kauna, which is right here. Kauna. You can also see Tiwas. And we say I want Urur and Thorisad, so I'm going to add it to the bottom of this. So the last one was the one about the person who's speaking evil. So I'm using Manets. And in Manets, I also have Urur. I also have Isa. In this case, if there is a direction where this is coming to, this starts here and it's blocking here, and then the effects essentially go back and forth. And then you also have Erwar. This is a little bit harder to see, but it's right here. And finally, I want Thorisads. I'm just going to add it in this section here. And so here I created my binding rune, and I'm using this binding rune for protection. So protection against evil, I'm pausing the evil and I'm sending it back to the person.